soon as it loads. Good morning.
Morning.
It is another beautiful Sunday, and once again, I am joined by Michael, Born Again Men of Life Talks, Jonathan, the Wellness Dad, and our friend and author, John Webster.
Hello.
How you guys doing?
Doing well.
Little quiet Sunday, huh?
The coffee's kicking in.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things we discussed having a conversation about, which we can start with, is prayer. So I think our resident Lord of Paradoxes had some thoughts and some ideas that he wanted to bandy about. So I'll turn it over to him to lay the groundwork, and we'll go from there.
Well, I mean, the older I get and the more I realize how little I know, truly, especially in our discussions, I just find myself asking simple questions and just getting feedback from different people. And it's really interesting. And it's the idea of prayer, I think, is just thrown around. You know, people, at least my personal view is I think a lot of people see prayer as like an incessant child praying to a genie. Please, God, give me, Lord Jesus, I need a new car. I need this. I need that. Please help my baby. Like, and I've caught myself in that loop too at points in my life. But I mean, as I've gotten older, there's just, to me, what makes the most sense. I think there's a really good thing of the spoken word, saying prayer out loud. I think being in the presence of that is definitely an element of it, but I also think there's a revelatory aspect of it, where essentially you kind of shut up and hear God's voice, the silent voice within. And man, that's hard. It's hard to do. But I think it's so important. And I definitely am interested on what you guys have to think on this topic.
Well, my personal favorite is when I catch myself asking God or asking Jesus or any of the saints to help me out of bullshit I put myself in. Because I usually have that moment where I'm like, ugh. And then I'm in my head going, God help me navigate this. And then immediately afterwards, my next thought is, oh yeah, I did this to myself. And now I'm asking him to dig me out of it.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, but there's a point of, unfortunately, the sin of pride where
Yes.
you just kind of bash yourself a little bit.
Yes.
Like, I would have never needed to ask for help if I wasn't being a jackass in the first place.
Yep.
But prayer is always, even before I was Catholic, it's always been a deeply personal concept to me. I used to call myself, spiritual, not religious, in those dark times when I was angry at God for things that weren't his fault. And even then, I would still pray. It was the technically wrong kind of prayer, obviously, more of that help me get out of my own BS mentality instead of, I've been walking your word and I don't know where to go from here. There's probably a lot of that, but I wasn't ready to see it. So it would be a personal thing. I'd step away from a situation and just take a minute and pray. In my head, it was never out loud. Not until I actually let go of my anger. So it was almost like I was sneakily having a conversation with God because I was idiotically ashamed of trying to do it out loud. That's a weird thing to admit, and I haven't really thought about it, so that's going to be on my mind probably all week long.
There's an entire chapter in Luke where Jesus is talking to his disciples. His disciples actually said, "Lord, teach us how to pray."
Mm-hmm.
And this is where we get the Father, hallowed be thy name verse from. The whole chapter actually explains a lot of what we should ask for and why our Father in heaven is so awesome. This is something that I didn't experience as a child. If I asked my father for an egg, I would get a scorpion. But he actually, in verse 11, he says, "Which of you fathers, if your son asks for a fish, you give him a snake instead? Or if he asks for an egg, you give him a scorpion? If then, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give the Holy Spirit to those who ask him?" So here we have an understanding that God is a God of love. He's a parent. So we shouldn't be afraid to ask God for things, even if you're asking for a Lambo. Hey man, can I get a Lamborghini? Lord, that would, make my life so much better. You're probably not going to get it, okay? It's kind of a selfish ambition, but if you're struggling that day with your past or things like you said, Daniel, things that you put yourself in, it happens. I do it to myself all the time. I'm like, good gosh, John, why did you do that, dude? You can still ask
Same.
God to help you out of it or give you the strength to go through it. And He will provide. He will provide that strength. Sometimes it's not immediate. Sometimes we sulk for a while,
Mm-hmm.
waiting. Okay, God, what's going on with this? And then before we know it, He shows up in such a mighty way that we're blown away. And we're
Yeah,
just like, what the
that's
freak,
why I
dude?
think the revelatory thing is really spoken to maybe, and the surrender, and the peace that surpasses all understanding.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think when you're in that sense of peace, you can, like Daniel, plenty of situations I put myself in, where I'm like, oh God, get me out of this, right? But the just kind of shifting into peace is like shifting into that gear and surrendering um gives you, it's like it comes just like that versus thinking like, all right, it's like having a checklist. What do I do to get out of this? It's like surrender and then you'll see, and it's
Hmm.
a paradox. And I also think it's a trap of the enemy that you fall into surrender and apathy
Yes.
because I often think of you know um like to me, and maybe we can dive in a little bit with this, but there's something about a peace protest, and then there's something about someone who's gone to war who wants peace,
Mm.
if
Well,
that
those are
makes
deep.
Explain.
sense. So there's it's everybody wants peace for the most part. There's some people who want the war, but generally everybody wants peace. But to me, a soldier who wants peace, to me, has more power.
Yeah. He's experienced it.
He's experienced it, and it's the reason why I like wrestle with it so much is because it's a paradox in the sense that someone who's gone through the experience, but again, there's layers to it. It doesn't mean you have to go through the experience to say you want peace, but it's like as we were speaking about this idea of the complexity to simplicity, when you recognize like how complex things are, sometimes there's a need for force, defund the police, these ideas where they're not dove into really, right? But we can talk about the ideas of flow, like my main point or the deeper idea behind it.
Yeah, I don't really have a full pushback, but there's something there that I want to try to catch. And I don't really know how to express it at the moment. So I'm just going to ramble for a minute until it makes itself known. But it's there.
Yeah.
I just can't see it in the weeds.
Talk through it, brother.
So why, the inevitable question, our favorite one, is there more power, quote unquote, in someone who has experienced violence and strives for peace than a person who strives for peace, period, without ever having to experience violence?
So that's where I say there's nuance, right? I can't speak for everybody. It's like, oh no, this guy went to war, so he can. That's why I was clear on that because I felt that come up. But I think that it's oftentimes easy to hold a sign that you want peace in the idea of the virtue signaling. In the sense that it's the opposites of peace and war.
But do we know what's in the holder of the sign's heart versus the holder of the veteran?
That's what he's saying, the nuance.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
don't know.
I can't play God to say so it's not, I can't make a generalization. Everybody, who hasn't gone to war, and I would double down on that point. But I think there's a level of complexity because I think the point was better made than me in this moment with Gandhi, which essentially he said that he was essentially saying people who want that peace is not a passive force, like holding a sign or what. And he's not saying this, but essentially there's passivity, there's aggression, and then there's the assertive way. So the passivity is the rabbit who wants peace.
Yeah.
And he actually uses that example as the rabbit. And then he was speaking how quotes on the power, right? There's a power, and I would say wisdom. There is seeing it, not power in better than. Then there's the aggressor, whereas the Spartan, and he spoke about the Spartans, where there's a level of I'll die by your side. There's this honor, this strength. There's this to the death, right? But then he said even more than that is the peace path, which is an active force, and that's the hard thing, and that's the original point of this whole mind experiment we're in is the idea that true peace is an active force, and that's the paradox, is because turn the cheek is on one view when you look at it as passive. I'm not going to turn the cheek. I'm not going to let this person run all over me. But the shift is to act is through the active force, is understanding, which comes through the understanding, and the understanding element, I think, and they're tied into the original point, I think comes from prayer. It comes from a revelatory, because one person this is probably the best way I can frame it. One person turns the cheek and they're a coward. Another person turns the cheek and they're courageous. How do you distinct the difference?
Circumstances in their heart.
Yeah.
The intention, yeah.
It always goes to the heart. We were talking about that yesterday. It always comes
Yep.
back to the heart, but you can't see their heart unless they're preaching peace in the streets, and then they're throwing Molotov cocktails at you. That's different. Then you can say, "Oh well, are you really coming from a place of peace, throwing that weapon at me?"
Yeah,
Oh,
I think of this. What
Morning,
was it?
Maji Chan.
Safe and peaceful, safe protests, and there's like fires going on. Like everybody knows that. Like gotta be
right. It's common
like
sense, but that's
I
the
will
point,
say
though.
we still don't know the intent of their heart.
Hmm.
Right. God
Right.
and that individual are the only people, regardless of their actions, we still don't know the intent of their heart. We still don't know their posture of their heart. And that's something that I constantly try to keep in mind, even when people
Yes.
are preaching peace and then doing heinous crimes like throwing Molotov cocktails or breaking and entering and destroying businesses and all that stuff.
Yep.
Constantly try to remember we don't know the intent of their heart. We don't know their story, and forgive them, Father, for they do not know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Come at it
Oh,
with grace.
yep.
And
Absolutely.
it's one of the hardest things that since coming back to Christ several years ago, like that that's probably one of the hardest things, and being able to fully let go and let God. I know we've
Yes.
talked about that to extent, knowing that I can only do what God gives me the power to do, and I pray for that,
Mm.
and God put me in situations to be able to use my God-given gifts to make change in this world as He sees fit. But outside of that, we gotta let go and let God,
Yes. Some
and
things you
pray
can't
on it.
control.
We can't, and you
Most
just
things you can't control.
Yes. Yeah.
anything.
That's the thing, Daniel. Yeah. Most things.
And
Yeah.
having and squelching that ego within us to fully see that,
God.
Daniel,
I have.
is like
Was it easy?
no,
Yeah.
no simple.
That's the paradox. Is I think that like we all, based on our conversations, we've all gone through some heavy stuff, and we
We
keep
have.
going through it. And then
Yep.
it's like those simple words of having grace and all that to me has power when you say it.
Yes.
Because
Yep. Well,
I
versus younger
will.
Mike, when I would say these kind of quotes, or I'll post a quote and I'm just like, it didn't have power, but it's not my power. It's just me getting out of my own way so I can actually see. I can look at, you could look at one verse in the Bible and then 3 years later look at the same verse and go, oh,
I will posit that, and I've said this before, there is a certain intuition, and if we follow the bouncing ball, that intuition is God speaking to us through circumstance. There's a certain intuition that where you can tell when someone is genuine, when they're coming
yes.
from a place of truth. And if the
Yes.
truth is the word of God, then you can feel God moving through their actions and their words.
Hmm.
So maybe that's part of where you're finding your paradox at, is that there's a large group, and John and I were kind of brushing this topic a little bit before we started the live stream. In a mob situation,
Yep.
the going by psychology, if you really want to get in that, the pack is moving based on the quote unquote leader directive. So they may not even know why they're doing the things that they're doing, other than I want to be part of the thing.
Yes.
And that's not genuine. That's not
Yes.
truth.
Nope.
So certain individuals within a group can feel to you like they're communicating some sort of truth. And other individuals within that group can be throwing Molotov cocktails and not be genuine about it. But we as people, humans, some of our physical systems translate to our brains as one entity. A group is not a group of individuals. It's one large mass coming at us. And if we feel 70% of that mass is out to do harm, not to be peaceful, then the other 30% becomes not pursuing of peace by association within our minds.
Right.
And that's where it gets muddy. I think that might be part of that particular paradox.
I don't think I wanted to touch on this a little bit. This is kind of off on a different direction. You were talking about pacifists and then peacemakers, and I don't think peacemakers are pacifists. Peacemakers are the guys who will step between two people who are about to fight to bring like peace between the two people, reconciliation, forgiveness. This is not a peace. That's not a pacifist state, because if you're going to step between two people who are about ready to fight each other, you're not a pacifist. You're you're either an idiot or you're really seeking peace. Because I've done this, and it's a scary place to be, and you have to be confident enough to where, okay, so if these guys don't accept peace, they're going to go to war, and that means I'm going to be the guy they hit first. So being a peacemaker is okay, and I get what you're saying about veterans and how the cost of war drives them to be more peace centered and they hate war. That's a very good point. But just because someone doesn't want war doesn't make them necessarily a pacifist. Pacifists don't fight. They don't want. They're the rabbit we were talking about. The rabbit that sits there and says the Gandhi thing.
It's not technically true. It may be socially what you see more often, but the purest definition of pacifism is simply that violence is unjustifiable.
Okay.
And all conflicts should be resolved in a peaceful manner. So a pacifist can be a peacemaker. Some people may use pacifism in a, for lack of a better term, erroneous fashion.
I'm not talking about the technical term. I'm talking about people who are cowards, who don't want to fight.
I mean.
They run away from everything. They're not confrontational. I was like this as a child. I was a terrified little child, ran away from everything. That's the type of pacifism. I'm talking about the type of pacifism where you allow someone to beat on you.
And there's the apathy that Michael brought up earlier.
Yes.
That's an apathetic stance.
Yeah, and to Jonathan's point, how's their heart, right? And
it's their heart.
Yes. Yeah, a peacemaker would not fight off the two people trying to attack each other, but would stand in between them and take the strikes of the two until they calm down and were able to resolve in a peaceful fashion. That is, I believe, the strength that you're talking about.
Yes,
to stand up against the.
It's the active element, and the active element doesn't mean
good morning, Queen.
It doesn't mean that you go to I'm willing to go to war, and it's like there's so many pieces to it. What it means is that the active force is that you're willing to fight. Christ fought, but the element that prayer and wisdom comes with is to what end. And I think one part of that is, Gandhi, which is a great movie from back in the day. Like, I highly recommend it. There's an element where he's speaking with all the people and he's like, their laws they're making, I will kill any man who comes in my house. And he goes, I am also willing to fight, and I'm willing to die. And there's the quote, I'm willing to be I may be tortured, I may be, imprisoned, but then they will have my dead body, not my obedience. And he says, I am willing to fight and die, but I am not willing to kill, like something along those lines. So he's willing to fight, just not as the world fights. And the fighting can be very different. It could be as simple as, hey, you know what? This isn't the time to argue with this person. Maybe this is a moment. The active force is asking a question. You know, it's a simple question, a childlike question that reveals why they're there and makes them think deeper into, hey, you know what? Maybe this peace protest is a political peace movement that we've been captured in, or whatever it is. Because there's so much noise. And I think it was a very good point, which I noticed as well, is that you have, and I'm not going to get too political here, but let's say you had a Black Lives Matter movement or a Trump movement, and within that movement, here's all of these different characters here with all different motivations and reasons why they're here. And from the from the foolish eye, the camera that wants to paint the story to blanket everybody in that, they're all in this group. They're all in this group. And to have the complexity and be like, no, there's all different people from all different positions, and to see through it all is the complexity factor.
Yes.
Like, for example, when Christ said he was without sin, cast the first stone, he was able to see the complexity and know that, all these different people who are looking to judge or whatever, that what the one simple statement that you could say in this situation disarms everybody. And, it's things that like, if he said something else, like, hey, you can't throw that stone, and pointed at one person, then it didn't have the same effect.
But it also had to be confrontational.
Yeah.
I think that's the crux of the difference. Whether or not you're willing to be confrontational in order to resolve a situation peacefully, or whether you're going to be passive and, in essence, as John said, cowardly. Our queen, Rebecca Snow, hopped in and she said, oh my gosh, yes, the pacifism versus aggression argument. It's not meant to be inaction versus action. It is a tool for justice. Justifiable homicide in defense of innocent life versus love in defense of life. It's a very good point. And I think that's what we're just coming to realize, is the differences in non-confrontational versus confrontational. We see the non-confrontational as the cowardly and the passive, the rabbit. But those who are confrontational enough to stand up and place themselves in the moment in order to resolve it in as peaceful a fashion as possible, and recognize, which I think, to Rebecca's point, recognize when peace is not an option.
Yes.
That's the bigger one. She even goes on with another paragraph. When your action does not defend innocent life, it's not the will of God. There is no holiness in allowing criminals to kill innocents, just as there is not holiness in hair trigger violence against any who offend. It's exactly the point I was just making.
Yes.
Everyone needs to recognize that peace should be the first goal, but in this sinful world that we live in, sometimes you can't reach that goal. You can try your hardest, but like Christ, sometimes you have to act, and you may have to act in a more confrontational manner. Just don't fall into the sin side of wrath, where it becomes murder. I think, like you were talking about with what he said, he's willing to die but not willing to commit murder. It's not murder if the other party is irreconcilably incapable of stopping their aggression. It's like an animal, unfortunately, and this may offend some folks, but I'm going to go into it. If you've got a starved beast coming at you and it wants to eat you, which means you will die, your only course of action is to survive by destroying it.
Yeah.
You can try to trap it, but if the trap fails, then the only choice you have left is either let yourself be eaten by the animal or remove the animal from the equation completely.
There was an X thing I got involved with. I probably shouldn't have. Um, a few days ago, where there was a guy talking about self-defense, and that if someone came into their home and they would kill the person in self-defense, and this is a very political thing, but I don't think so. I think it's about survival. I think it's anyway, so this other guy goes, well, wouldn't you come to a moral decision in the moment and decide, instead of killing the person, you would uh, subdue them, or shoot them in the leg, or, kind of trying to avoid the whole, oh, like, you're going to think about morality when someone breaks into your home in the middle of the night, um, alone or with their friends. You're going to be reacting with your adrenaline and your instinct, which is survival, and it's to protect the people under your care. So you can either become a victim in that mentality, or persecuted by 12, or carried by 6, right? It's one of those things where I think instinct to survive kicks in, um, and you're either going to defend yourself and your family, because the minute someone comes into your home, they've already committed violence against you. They've come through your window, they've come through your door, they've come through your locks, they've come into your abode, and your abode is where you're protecting your family or yourself. Doesn't matter, you or your family. They've already committed violence trying to get into your stuff, into you, or get to you. So you have a right to defend yourself. You're not going to be thinking about morality. It's like the minute that first bullet flies past your head, politics and religion go out the window. Politics and morality go out the window. You're going to be thinking, how do I defend myself? I got to protect my family. I got to protect myself.
Yeah,
Not in
and
every
mortality.
circumstance. Not in every circumstance, but in most circumstances. I think it's a human thing.
It
It's
is
an
very much so.
instinctual try to survive thing.
Mhm. Like human instinct, Daniel and I, we talk about this often from a human psychology perspective. Like it does. It comes back down to our human instinct and what God has put in us to survive as a species.
Hmm.
And when mortality is in question, morality goes out the window.
Yep.
And
I would say advanced morality goes out the window,
correct.
which is the complication of things. Because
Yes.
Fair.
in my opinion, there is still morality in the instinct of survival.
Yes, there is. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you. Yeah.
But the advanced morality, the complicated, well, maybe I shouldn't hurt this person climbing through my window with a machete. Maybe they just want to talk. That sort of advanced
Maybe they just
morality,
need a
that
hug.
goes out the window. Baseline morality should remain.
Yes.
Yes.
I do want to. So you said peace should be the first goal, but for me, I think peace should actually be the ultimate goal, right? Like
Mm.
peace should be the goal. How you get there is different in every situation. Sometimes it does take conflict.
I will be right
Sometimes,
back.
sometimes it takes comfort. Sometimes it takes curiosity. But ultimately, peace is the goal. How we get there, action versus inaction, is different in every situation. Sometimes it does take flipping the tables, and sometimes it does just take a simple question. He without sin cast the first stone.
I
Like
mean, if we're
Jesus
going
going,
out looking to fight somebody, if we're somebody who's controversial, and we're constantly egging people on to fight us, then we're coming from a bad place. Anyways, your intentions are clearly misgiven. Like, I'm not saying that you can't be controversial. What I'm saying is, like, if you're going out to a bar every night and picking fights with people at the bar, you can't sit there and justify yourself blowing somebody away, in self-defense because you're the aggressor. But if you're somebody who's just sleeping in your home and then somebody breaks in with a machete, they're not there to have coffee and tea with you. They're there to rob, steal, or kill. And I think it's okay. It's more morally okay to defend yourself. I don't think God would condemn me for that. Um, it's an act of self-defense. You're defending yourself, right? Does that make sense? Am I
Yeah.
wrong
Yeah.
here?
And Watch of the Dam says, each of us has our calling. God himself instructs as we are called by virtue of our own nature and gifts. Those who would harm me would harm those in my care. I am their defender and protector. So I'm going to
Yes.
speak the word of Christ while I defend them. It is up to the criminal to decide if they will accept the word or weapon. And
Yep.
I cannot agree more. And it is, and that's the beautiful thing about God, right? God gives us free will.
Mm-hmm.
Every individual, believer or not, we have free will. Are you going to accept the word or are you going to accept the weapon?
Yep. Now
Excellent point.
I saw a video a few years ago where there was a woman working in a store and there was a customer and then a guy walked up and put a gun in their faces and the woman goes, I renounce you in the name of Christ, demon be gone, or something like that, crazy. And the guy dropped his weapon. Didn't drop it, he just kind of lowered his hand and he left. And I was like, what the freak? And it was on one of those store cams, so it wasn't like a setup, you know what I'm saying? Like it was somebody playing games or something on the internet. It looked real. And I'm just like, wow, that's hardcore, man. Does that work every time? Probably not. But wow, that was awesome. She didn't pull out a gun and blast the guy. She blasted him with the word and set him running. That's pretty cool. Would I say that do that in every circumstance? Probably wouldn't work. But hey,
Worth the
if someone breaks into my home, they're going to meet a gun. That's they're going to. I have tons of them. They're going to meet a gun. Um, if in the terms that they're surrendered, and I'm holding them at gunpoint until the cops arrive, I'm going to talk to them about Jesus and tell them that they just about met him and explain to them the gospel and witness to them if I can. Maybe you know help them if I can with some words. But I'm not necessarily going to blast somebody just because they come in the door every time. But if they're definitely armed, I'm definitely going to put them down. There's not going to be a second thought. They're armed, they're dead. But they're definitely going to meet the barrel of a gun when they come in, because anyone that comes in my door is definitely going to be face to face with eternity, right? In self-defense of my wife and myself. That's just the way it is.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember there ever being a statement in the Bible of you not carrying or even say drawing a weapon to defend yourself.
Well, we think about warfare. I always go to the Old Testament. Standing your ground. David didn't let Goliath beat him to death. David stood up and killed Goliath, right?
Mm-hmm.
He stood on the word of
And there
God.
was
He
no
stood.
choice at that point. Is in direct conflict.
Yes. It was
And the
either
sling,
surrender.
yeah, and the sling is definitely a weapon, and he did put a
Hmm.
rock in it, so he was
Yes.
fully prepared to do
Yes.
so.
And he was very good at that sling, man. That's a master slinger. Is that what they call them? Slingers?
I've seen some videos of people using those things. They can be pretty deadly.
Yes. Yeah. Very accurate and very
Jersey,
deadly.
Jersey James said, according to Catholic doctrine, the commandment is thou shalt not kill. That is correct.
Yes. And that comes from the heart.
Yep, that is the letter of the word.
Jesus said it, if you hate someone, you've already killed them in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
That's the heart. He always goes to the heart, right? What's your intention? Murder is an intentional thing. Defending yourself in combat, fighting in a war, or defending yourself in self-defense is not murder.
Thou shalt not murder, yeah.
Unless your intention is to murder. Because there are soldiers that have gone into combat with the desire to murder people. There are
Correct.
soldiers like that. Not universally, but I've talked to a few who were in war and enjoyed it. They enjoyed killing. Then there's people who, like I was saying earlier, that pick fights. They're confrontational, they go out and they want to hurt people. And so that's not necessarily, that's a heart thing.
Mm-hmm.
What are their intentions?
And that's something that, especially on social media, you will find dopey responses like this a lot, where people refer to the concept of murder and the concept of killing as one and the same. But in the book, and this is partially because I have to correct what I said. I said thou shalt not kill when the statement was thou shalt not murder. The killing of animals as sacrifice or as nutrition doesn't count as murder.
Nope.
Because it's not.
Nope.
Especially when like, if you think about it, anytime God said make a sacrifice and people went okay and they took their goat or their cow or whatever and they killed it, then technically they would have been breaking the commandments that came well after the fact of that actually happening. Because if I remember correctly, the commandments were in New Testament.
No, commandments
or towards the end of the Old Testament. I don't remember exactly, but in the chronology of the book, there were many sacrifices that were made, and some of those sacrifices almost had people involved. There were many stories of God saying, make a sacrifice, and those who responded to it looked to the people that they loved and said, well, unfortunately, I have to sacrifice you because you're the most important thing to me. And God said, give me the most important thing to me.
That was a judge, yes, that you're referring to. That was in Judges.
So, yeah. So,
but that's because the guy he made a vow.
But the difference is in the understanding, and right now we have a crisis of lack of comprehension with people.
Mm-hmm.
And the understanding of the difference between kill and murder is where a lot of these dumbass social media arguments and conversations come from. To kill an animal is not murder.
Mm-mm.
And sometimes to kill a person isn't murder, as we've discussed, in the defense of yourself and the people under your protection, the children of God. You may be forced to kill another human being who will not stop.
Yes, until they're dead. Yeah.
So there is a distinction between the two. I'm not going to read Kahuna's comment out loud, but since this is serious and his is silly, I'm just going to put it up on the screen so we can laugh at it.
Oh man. is.
All of my ancestors curse your name, Kahuna.
Bro, my too, man. Come on.
I got a bit of Irish in me too, man. Oh, that's funny.
I think a lot of
Yeah,
conflict though, and well, not conflict necessarily, but arguments come down to understanding what words mean, understanding where people are.
Mm,
Like it's a mist. And I took this class. It's called Crucial Conversations. It's based off of a book. And one of the main points that I took away from it was like an 8-hour class, but it was just for me it boiled down to what's the story they're telling themselves and what's the story I'm telling myself
mm,
about said situation. And
yep.
instead of internalizing that and just say, well, this is what's going on, I know it, you verbalize it saying, hey, this is the story that I'm telling myself about what's going on right now.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying too?
Yes.
And then they'll tell you their story about what they're seeing in the situation. And I almost guarantee you that the majority of the time, the story that we are telling ourselves and they are telling themselves
It's
is
different.
completely different than what we had in our mind.
Well, it's
So
empathy, man.
that's something that I constantly try to think of in many situations because I'm in healthcare and I deal with a lot of people in very stressful situations and
Yes, you do.
respond
That's
to
also the
stress.
complexity and the simplicity, right? Because
Absolutely.
like if you become essentially like a reporter, and I think this is where a lot of people get lost, including myself for a period of time. You go
Mm,
into the rabbit hole. I think you have to
mhm.
go into the rabbit hole a little bit. You just can't go all the way because it doesn't end. If you go
Yes.
enough into it, you ask more questions, and then at a certain point, you can find wisdom like serenity prayer. What's in my control, what's not, and then completely letting
Yes.
go of it. And then when you say a simple statement like, well, nothing you can do about that, so why are you going to worry about it? You can say that
Exactly.
with conviction versus something where someone's wrestling with something that they can change,
Yes.
or if you're talking with your example, like a perspective on something, a story, um, I think leading with questions, because people ultimately have to choose how they want to see something. And if they don't want to see something a different way, nothing, we've all hit those conversations where nothing you say is going to change them. And I think if your position is genuinely right, which in your heart is right, and that's hard thing for the ego. Really, I think asking questions is your ultimate power. Just like, so what do you think about this? And then leaving leaving it be. Because if you genuinely are right, you don't have to force your view on anybody
Exactly.
because you're right. And that's the hard part. Especially, I think of it, I think of it like God. I think of it, I'm not a father, but as you guys being fathers, right? Like if you're right with your kid, what you want in that moment is, even though we may fall, is you want them to see it. So that's where the moment becomes just like, well, trying to find the question that might hit that light bulb, that they can see it.
there's two things on that I think are interesting. The first one being that the book says meet people where they are. And we can interpret that as mentally as well as physically. It doesn't always just mean go to the places where they stand at. But like Jonathan's example and what you were just talking about, asking those questions helps you meet people where they are in their heads. They could be in some of the darkest reaches of their own
Yes.
mind, and you
Yes.
go to them there by asking questions and learning about what it is that they're thinking, what it is that they're feeling, and the crises that they might be going through. The second point there I thought was really interesting was you used the word force. And there's the rub. That's the thing that trips most of us up is eventually a part of our own psyche, our own, levels of sin, wants us to force an outcome out of a situation.
Mm-hmm.
What is a confrontation? It's a show of force between two parties. And ultimately, the deciding factor is which one survives. So even in conversation, you could start a conversation, and we as parents had that happen. I'm sure Jonathan can back me up on this one. His kids are much younger than mine. I go through some interesting, complicated conversations with my adult daughter, but there is a point where you have a conversation about something and they can't see it, they don't see it, and it frustrates you to a point where you start to try to exert your will over their decision.
Yes.
The first thing that came to mind, though, like as I'm wrestling with this, is that maybe force is, if it's used as a tool appropriately, can be, it has to be a tool. It can't be the root. And what came to my mind was They Live. That's like a specific example where he gets these, he's trying to explain, he's like, don't you see what's going on? And like it gets to the point where he just like, all right, we're fighting this guy. And there's like an element, it's like that's the tool he uses in that,
You're talking about Roddy Piper and Keith David's fight in the movie, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's where it's just like, and it works out where it's just like, it didn't, nothing else worked. But like for some reason that popped in my head because like that's an element of where, then that worked. Everything else didn't work, and that's like a specific example. But like Christ flipping the tables, like or even seemingly forceful speech, like in the sense of like if you don't hate your mother and your father, like I that was a quote that I thought about when like it doesn't mean hate your mother and father. It means love God first. But my thing, why did he choose those words? They're combating words.
Like Jersey, I think, answers that question pretty well. The latter half of his statement here. Trickery, that is useful. And that is what those types of words and those evocations are. They're meant to trick the mind,
Mm-hmm.
to
Not in a
divert
negative
off
standpoint.
of something.
Yeah,
No,
and I
not
wanna-
necessarily.
because people see trick and they automatically put a negative connotation on it.
Oh,
What
yeah.
about
Absolutely.
diplomacy? Wouldn't that be a better word?
No, because it's unfortunately with our language is limited.
Hmm.
It always has been. It gets more and more complicated as time goes on, but it still limits the ability for us to communicate information to each other. What it is manipulation. It is manipulation flat out. If you use words to,
That's diplomacy, though, isn't it?
if you use, well, sort of, but if you use words to change a person's mind without their full understanding of what it is that they're doing, that is manipulation. That is trickery. Diplomacy can be manipulation and trickery because it is one of the tools, like Michael said, it is one of the tools to do that. It's not always a straightforward, I say this, you say this, I say this, you say this. I hear what you say and maybe change my mind, or you hear what I say and maybe change your mind. It doesn't always work that way. And most of the time, unfortunately, because of our base, genetic composition, the general conclusion of any confrontation and exertion of will is the death of one of the two parties in some way, whether it's a physical death where I, kill you in order to stop you from exerting your will on the situation, or it's an idea death. I have changed your mind so much that you have chosen not to do this particular thing and exert your will over the situation. So it's a death no matter what it is. But to manipulate into death, that's where the negative connotation comes from. Well, you didn't change my mind. You just tricked me into doing it differently. You tricked me into killing my idea. And that's where that negative connotation comes from. But trickery is absolutely useful. It has always been a part of what we consider civil discourse, and it's rampant throughout the Bible. Jesus does it. David does it. So many of the people recorded in the book use words to manipulate others who cannot see the path of God. So they're being cajoled almost into a godly decision without their conscious understanding of it at the time. Some of the stories even say later on, hindsight being 2020, as they say, later on, the person understood what Jesus had done in that moment. But in that moment, it was a straight trick.
Well, look at Jeremiah. Here's a kid who got called into ministry to be a prophet when he was young, really young. And God told him everything that was going to happen to him. And Jeremiah said, I'm all in. And then a few years later, he's in the bottom of a cistern crying out to God, why me? I mean, Elijah had the same experiences. He's facing down these pagans who are threatening to kill him, and he wants to prove that his God is bigger than their God, and he does. And at the end of it, he's going, they're still persecuting me, Lord. We put ourselves in these situations because God calls us to them, but then I guess we can rely on God to get us out of them. But then I guess, does that go around with what you're saying, or did I go off on a different tangent?
I will say from a parenting perspective, like let it, whatever you want to say, persuasion, manipulate, influence. Our ideal is to be able to influence our children into staying on the righteous path of life, right?
Yes.
But
Yes.
there are moments where force is certainly necessary. When your child is riding their bike and swerving into the road, well, guess what? You need to get in between the road and the bike to guide them back on to the safe path. Might not be the righteous path, but the safe path, right? And that's force. But
Whips out the heavy Bible with metal ornaments for combat.
correct, yeah.
That would be a great character to.
Put it on the end of a big old stick like a mace. All
Yes.
right, I got.
Technically true. They did have a staff with, I guess they were spokes where they would carry the book. It would be placed between the spokes to keep it locked in, and it would just be carried like a banner. So I guess in theory, someone could just be like whack right over the head.
Yep. Mace. Yep.
That's awesome. But force is necessary sometimes.
It is
to ensure safety.
Yes.
But ideally, influence, and that's the word I choose to use, even though they all freaking mean the same thing. Just influence gives a little bit warmer, fuzzy feeling than manipulate, trick,
yes.
persuade.
Well, when I think of manipulate, I think of something very deceitful and nasty. But it can mean
I had a
other
discussion
things.
with my buddy a while back. I'll never forget. We're playing pool and we were talking about positive and negative manipulation. And then the question of the argument, is there such thing as positive manipulation? And this is the element that I do believe, there is positive manipulation,
Yes.
but what happens when you think you're positive manipulation? This is where it can take an ugly twist. And I think it requires radical humility. Like if you're going to manipulate, it can lead someone down the completely wrong path, so it just be wise with manipulation. They go hand in hand, because you can trick somebody into doing wrong or trick somebody into doing right, or you can trick somebody with the right intention and the message wasn't received. So, I think
and
it just
could
requires
backfire.
humility. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I
I
always
don't
use is
know
like,
that that's 100% possible, that the message is not received. Based on my experience and what I've learned of people, the message is received, it's just ignored.
Oftentimes.
So it's not a matter of your intention being, as you put it, misleading, because your intention was you go this way and the person ignores it and goes that way instead. But that doesn't mean that they didn't hear you. It just meant
Yes.
that they chose something else.
Yes.
Well, I guess I would just say just be careful when using trickery, that it's not coming from ego. I think that's the only point that
Agreed.
I would add.
Yes.
the intent.
Or some selfish, very self-centered place where you're manipulating so you could benefit from them making a decision, you know.
You
Yeah,
influence
which
from a place of love, manipulate from a place of love, trick from a
Yes.
place of love. If I
Yes.
trick somebody into, radically changing their lifestyle and
Yes.
losing a bunch of weight, gaining a bunch of muscle, is that negative?
No, not
No,
at all.
positive, right?
And if you can
And
do
that's
that, man, that's awesome because most people don't listen to their nurses or their doctors. They just
but
go, "Oh, that's cool, man."
that's
Right?
that's the piece that a lot of Western medicine forgets is they don't know how to utilize human psychology to
Yes.
Oh man,
to
don't open up this can of worms. Trust the science. I don't know,
we
man.
only have
no.
we only have a
Actually, we're
half
not,
hour.
yeah, we're not going
I
trust the
have to
science.
touch it, man, because
No, don't touch it. Leave it alone.
I
Just
have
leave it alone.
no. You
Just
can't
walk
say
away.
that.
Just
Man.
walk away. Just
No,
walk
no
away.
shot.
Just walk
No
away.
shot, man.
So, from a human psychology
You finish your
standpoint,
point. I'm listening.
into making positive change, lifestyle changes, wellness changes, whatnot. Um, that's the part that is a miss a lot of times. The only thing that most doctors know is, oh, you just need to eat less and move more. That tagline that has been used for decades as our obesity continues to go up and chronic diseases continue to go up. And it's like, we're not meeting them where the patients are. We're not meeting people where they are at. When we
Exactly.
meet people where they are at, that is where influence comes. And Mike, before you go the trust the science route, I do want to, I don't know how to put it on stage, but I I do feel like the most effective evangelism is invitation only. There you go. Partially because it reflects God's love for us. He does not force us, but he invites us to his kingdom and walk his path with. And that is meeting people where they are at and
Yes.
inviting
Yes.
to walk
And
the
that's the
path.
way you're supposed to give the gospel too. I honestly believe this. I don't think you can force Christianity on anyone. We're not Muslims. We don't feel like we got to force things on people. It's Christ who, well, it's the Holy Spirit that brings people to Christ. We give them the gospel, and it's kind of out of our hands at that point. Okay, I've told them the truth. Now it's between them and God to accept that truth, unless you're a Calvinist. And then that's a whole different bag of worms, and we're not going to go down that road. So,
I would say
No,
that's
we
ideal
gotta give
Christianity.
Michael his minute.
yes,
Well,
Michael, please.
I do. I think that's a good point, and I love. I had a clip with
Putting
Redmond.
that up because it fits well.
Yeah. But I think Redmond had said something that your testimony is one of your most powerful weapons used against the enemy, and I think that's right.
Amen.
And if you're trying to convert somebody, or you're having a discussion where there's like, I don't buy all this, this stuff, then I've found that his strength is made perfect in our weakness. Therefore, we boast of our weaknesses. If my
Amen.
experience, sharing your experience and how much it's screwed, how much you've gone down the wrong path, and and then
Hmm.
using that as a tool,
Yes.
and saying, and this is what worked for me. I was this, this, and I went
Yes.
this way. But I'm not
Yes,
looking
brother.
to Bible thump, but the trust the science, man. Yeah. I think it's just another example of many political, or it's the authority. What to me, Christianity, following Christ, is the most important, and it's it's not even saying it. It's not opening up the conversation with, "Hi, I'm a believer in Christ, and this, and I'm a doctor. Oh, I believe it." No, it's like, do they have humility? Do they, you know, do are they forcing their view? Why are they saying what they're saying? And, you know, um, you know, it's something as simple as, with the vaccine. Do you know what's in the vaccine? I mean, this is a
Nope.
simple child question. You don't. So then how do you
Nope.
know this going into me is so but then at the
Why?
same time, it's like I'm not also just going to dismiss someone who's spent their life studying it, but I also understand that a doctor is someone, he's a human being who has fears and, well, I have to do this or I'm going to lose my job. It's just another person. And,
Hmm.
I think, um, just seeing all those signs and I trust the science. It's like in the same way, I'm sure you can relate with this, Daniel. It's like trust in the church. No, like, what if they're doing something wrong? It's like I trust in what's right. It's like don't trust in man, trust in God, and that applies to
That's it.
scientists and political figures. It applies probably especially
Doctors.
more so. Especially, we should be holding more people to account who are in authority, especially as Americans. I mean, I feel like that's something that should bring us together. Freedom.
Hmm.
What is that? It's
Hmm.
it's it's such a it's such a thin line, right? We are built on a country that did not put our faith in authority. We're ideally you put the faith
I would say
in
human authority, but at the same time, it was said, "Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's," and to a certain extent, you can create a contextualization that means if a person who shows their authority has something to say, you give it due deference, but don't you don't have to believe it, especially if it conflicts with the word of God, because God above man.
Yes.
Therefore, man with authority is underneath God. If man with authority says go left and God says go right, you're supposed to go right.
Yep.
I mean,
yeah.
to simplify the context of the situation. But when that man with authority says go left, if God doesn't say anything, then you decide based on your own discernment whether or not the intention of that man of authority is true and to follow that.
And I think this also even goes back to the question, how many people walk into a doctor's office and say, and ask the childlike questions that gets to the root of said authority, like
So why should I listen to you?
correct. Even saying
Yes.
something like that, right?
Yeah,
And
very simple.
what came to my mind right away was Good Will Hunting, where he's meeting with the therapist. I thought it was such a great scene. He's reading the book. Like how many people read it? Like if a doctor writes a book, read their book. Like this person's gonna be hand in
Yep.
hand with your health. But he's questioning, and then he meets Robin Williams, where in that, I think it's one of the greatest scenes where he's just like, there's an element of challenging, which I think is good. A student should challenge a teacher, and a teacher should
Mhm.
challenge a student, because a true teacher and true student, their their interest is truth, not
Mm-hmm.
being right. And you know,
The pursuit of truth.
The
yeah,
That's
the
what they're
problem with
interested
that scene though is Will Hunting's heart, man. He wasn't
yeah,
he wasn't looking for answers. He was looking to get one up on Williams, right?
mm,
In the scene. He wants
in. Yeah.
to reverse psychoanalyze
hmm
because he's a cocky he's a cocky jerk
Well,
who
yeah,
has a
he's
lot of problems. He's got a
wrapped up
lot of
in his sin.
yes.
But
So
he
he
disarms him. What's so cool is he disarms him with Christian elements, where he's like, you know what? Yeah, this, and I cried myself to sleep last night thinking about it, but then I had a peaceful sleep because you don't know shit. And
yes.
there's that element of
Yes.
humility where just like,
Yes.
there's, I don't know. We can unwrap this. I love that. I love that scene where he humbles him, where it's just kind of like, you know, it's he sees how he starts off that scene really just spoke, where he's just like, I was up all night thinking about what you said. So he kind of gives him that, he's honest, he's being truthful, that I was thinking about it, but then I had a nice
Yes.
restful sleep, because you don't know shit. He identified that, he's all in his head. He hasn't experienced, he hasn't smelled the Sistine Chapel, but he knows all about the Sistine Chapel. So he's
Right.
essentially
Oh, you're
battling.
talking about the scene where they're in the park.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm thinking of like when they first met, dude.
Oh yeah. There's that kind of,
Controversial, confrontational thing. No, you're right. When Williams comes back and lays it on Will, oh my gosh, that was hardcore, man.
yeah.
But he did it in a way of love, right?
Yeah.
He had the right intention in his heart. Robin Williams,
Yep.
the character, was the character's name? I can't even remember.
Been a long time since I've seen it.
Yeah, it's been a few years for me, but it's a good film. Yep. Sorry.
No,
Uncomfortable
you're good.
silence. It happens.
I
Yeah.
gotta hop off for church, guys. I'll see ya.
Okay, Jonathan, have a great day,
Hey,
man.
Jonathan.
Thanks for coming, John. Yeah, so I mean that's a whole nother can of worms, Kahuna. I mean,
Yes.
it's a totally it's a totally different sphere of influence, even though healthcare is overseen by the government. That's a whole different sphere of influence when it comes to accountability and the movement of government. Government is not authority. It's infrastructure. It's just a thing. It's not a beast. It's not a man. It doesn't live and breathe. It is made up of living, breathing individuals. And those who go into that pit take the form of it.
Mm-hmm.
Just like if you were a miner, you come out of the mine covered in the dust of things that are inside of it, and people who go into government, into the infrastructure, they come out looking like it. Unfortunately, It's the nature of things. But the government can't lie to you, because it's not a being. It's just a system.
And the system is
like,
corrupt.
Government is
your house can't lie to you, because it doesn't have feelings or desires or goals. It's a house.
Mm-hmm.
The people that are inside of it, and that's the point I'm making, it's the people that are inside of it that create corruption.
Mm-hmm.
And as they create corruption, those who continue to go into it with the people that are already in there become
corrupted,
susceptible to that corruption,
or they get ejected by the corruption.
Right.
They either quit or get kicked out. Right? We've seen that in Congress a few times. They're like, Republican comes in, he's got all his head straight, I want to fix the system, and then the next thing you know, cocaine and orgies. You guys remember that one? And then he's kicked to the curb, man. They got rid of him fast. Bang, he's gone.
But essentially, what is the cover up? A cover up is not protecting the government through manipulation. It's protecting the misdeeds of the people within it.
Yes. Yeah.
But like I said before, with mob mentality, when you see a large group of people, you stop reacting to it as if it's 100 people. You react to it as if it's one thing.
Yes.
One really big
It's
thing.
a mob. Yeah.
Yep.
Government is
he said environment is more powerful than willpower. It can be. It certainly is, in the regard that there's a higher likelihood that your environment will change you than you will change your environment. But one of the major points of the Word of God is God made our environment. And if we treat it as God intended it, then no wrong would happen.
Right.
So if we exert our willpower, our free will, as granted by the unfortunate circumstances of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, we have the capacity as individuals to become a one large entity that treats the world as God intended it to be treated.
Yes.
It's a choice. And unfortunately, the largest percentage doesn't.
Yes. That's the problem.
It is,
But
but
when
it
Christ
isn't.
returns,
Yeah, there. Well, again, we go back to the Serenity Prayer. Is it our responsibility to try to affect the entire planet that God created? No, I don't think it is. I think it is our responsibility to affect the things that we can affect.
yes. Yeah, we can't
Mike,
force everybody to think a certain way.
Michael's got a pensive face on.
No, I just looking at the root word government is mind control. Is to control. To govern is to control. To mente is mind. So it's
Mhm.
mind control. And
Correct.
Mhm.
I think people who truly say trust in God first, not the government, is just a breaking off of if you had everyone trusting what is right, government would be a good thing, because essentially when the government says this is how we are going to, because we need to control, there's an element of control, right? And I would put it as discipline. Disciples of Christ were disciplined, and they're disciplined people. It's built into the word. We're going to be disciplined. We're going to be focused on what is true, not how we feel. That's one of the cores of it. And when you have a population that is not disciplined, then that government can make rules. And then if enough people follow those rules to be good rather than to do what is good, and if government is making good laws, follow those laws. But I think it was one of the forefathers that that says that not following bad laws is a good thing. Essentially, it's the core of the quote that is said.
So
but where
if
does
you were to let God control your mind, what would your life be? In your opinion?
that's true freedom?
Yes.
But then
But
also
Yes.
God would be your government.
Yes.
yes, correct. That would
That's
be like
okay.
the essence of good control, right? Because it's
That's
like
a
when
Right.
good
people say
control.
they want freedom, sometimes people will, as myself when I was younger, freedom means do whatever the hell you want. But
Hmm.
true freedom has that element of control, where it's just like,
Yes.
no, you have to be disciplined. Do you want people to do whatever they want? And I think there also is an element, there has to be the freedom where people have to willingly make the mistake so they can come to the right way. Because I wouldn't want,
Well, that's when I was talking about libertarianism. Uh, you want freedom, freedom from government or whatever or control, but it's do no harm. That's part of it as well. You can't separate the two. So you want you want to have this great government, you want to govern yourselves, you want to be able to have ultimate freedom, but then some people do that the wrong way. They want to control other people. They want to force them into morality. You see that in some dictatorships that are, or not dictatorships, but um, theocracies where religion is the head of the state. And even though people are driven towards morality, they sometimes they do it with what? Violence, force. They force people to do things the way that they want done, and that's not that's really not the right way of doing things. True
Well,
freedom is
is that
go ahead.
being in communion with the word of God to exert force over others?
No,
Well,
not
then that
necessarily.
theocracy is flawed.
Right. Well, I'm thinking about like Saudi Arabia,
Yeah, well, it's
right?
essentially the same thing when you boil it down. If God is your government, then any man speaking the word of God is underneath the actual word of God.
But that's not how theocracies are usually run.
Right.
Theocracies are run by a group of people who think they know the word of God, and if people don't follow it, then they force it down their throat, right? And they
Yeah, so
force them into conversions.
they're trying to subvert God
Yes,
Yeah, and that you
for
and
their
have the
put
own gains.
words,
man
the
and put
words and
man
the,
before him.
it's the words and the spirit of the words. That's the
Yes.
discernment that's required from the people, because when they pass the Don't Kill Puppies Act, my ears go up, right? Yeah, who the hell would,
Who would kill a puppy, right?
Bad people.
Yes. No, there are people that do kill puppies. Yes.
Then they'll have
Oh,
one
well,
thing that says don't kill the puppies, and then we're also sending $50 billion here for your safety, back
yes.
all this other stuff. And then they'll say, well, this politician voted against the Don't Kill Puppies Act, and then everyone, this,
That's negative manipulation.
yeah.
It's
Yes.
manipulation for personal design.
Yes. Absolutely.
It's an
Yep.
evil world we live in.
It is. And the system is corrupt, guys. And it's definitely, I always revert to the serenity prayer. This is out of my control. I can
Yeah,
vote. I can get involved with local politics and try to
And
support the right
that's
people.
how you change the world. You change yourself.
Yes.
It's a childlike
Yes.
statement, but it really is true. That's how you change it.
Yes.
Because the
Yes.
governments are corrupt because we're corrupt. It's
Yes.
like George Carlin's statement where it's like the people suck, and I recognize it within myself.
Yeah. Me too,
it's a,
Not
brother.
all, not
a bit
everyone.
more nuanced than that, in my
Sure.
opinion. In that, to change yourself is to change the world. It's actually, in my opinion, it should be my world, because my world is the world that I can affect.
Well,
It's
we can change local government though.
well, that's the
I know you
world that I can
better.
affect.
Yeah.
Right, right, right.
I am
Okay.
there
I see what
in
you're
that
saying.
specific place,
Right.
and the things that I do have the capacity to affect the people around me, not the people in Japan, because
Right.
they can't see what I'm doing. Maybe the people on the internet can see us having this conversation, hear our words, and it may affect some change to them, but they're within our bubble because they're here watching it on this channel or on Michael's channel.
Mm-hmm.
They're within our world, but the people outside of our spheres of influence, the people that are not watching, change cannot affect them.
Right.
So to a certain extent, yeah, you could hope for the fact that you make a move and 10 people see you make that move and they think, oh, that's a good thing. So they make that move, and 10 people around them individually, then 100 people more, and then 1,000 people more, and 1,000,000 people more. You can hope that that'll happen, but you cannot actually make that happen.
Yeah.
No.
It's beyond your ability to affect.
I think that's also core in with the when you give to the needy, do it in secret. When you pray or when you fast, don't be, you're not doing it for that. As you practice doing that, then you naturally, or as I heard a good quote before, the people who change the world are the ones who change it without needing claim or ownership of it. Like the root of that is like where it's essentially doing versus being, or as we
Mhm.
talk about like the source code. When you're rooted with the source code, you're not in the Serenity Prayer, it says, help me to accept the world as it is, as you were saying earlier
Yes.
too.
Correct.
Right. It doesn't mean that it's a mess and just like, I'm going to sit on the sidelines because there's nothing I can do. But it also doesn't mean go out and fix all the problems, to your point, because you can't fix all the problems.
No.
You work internally. And then when you're in that beingness, you'll fix the problems, like just by your own being. As long
Around
as
you.
Yes. And that ripples and it's not in your control,
Yeah, like for those of us on the East Coast, we hear San Francisco is a cesspool and there's trash everywhere and blah, blah, blah. And we might have the thought in our heads, boy, somebody should clean that up. And then that sparks the thought of, well, let me look around me and see what I can clean up in my world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not over in San Francisco.
Yes.
I mean, if you have the capacity to do so, like some humanitarian efforts, pay for travel and, people to go and do that. If you have the capacity to do so, go for it. That's charity.
Yeah.
That's missionary charity, which is talked about. It is part of the word. If you have the ability to go there, but if you've got $20 to your name, you can't afford to go to California and clean up the streets. So you deal with what's around you.
Yes. And deal with you too.
Yeah. So it's more, the change of your world, of my world, than it is the world. And I think that trips people's minds up, because when you think about it, if you spend 6 months not picking up after yourself, your entire house is a mess. How hard is it for you to motivate to clean up? I know for me, it would be extremely hard, because I'd be looking at the entire house going, this place is a disaster and I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
So you try to look at the entire world's problems. It's the same thing. Well, I don't know where the hell to start. It's too much for my brain.
It starts with us, man. Right?
But you give it to God.
Yes.
It's God's world. So I can't fix your world, God.
Right.
I'm not going to try, but I will do as I am told to do here.
Yep.
I'll clean up my room, and then I'll move on to the hallway, and then I'll move on to the next room, and I'll move on to the bathroom. And eventually your house is clean, just by looking at it as small things within your reach. It's what Jordan Peterson was saying with the clean your room thing. Affect the change around you. Because if you try to affect the entire world around you, you're just going to freeze.
Yep. It'll make you angry, bitter, and hateful if you think you can change the world on your own.
Yep.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I don't care how many protests you have. You can wave a banner for the rest of your life. There's nothing wrong with that. You want to protest, wave a banner, but you're not going to change the world. You're going to become bitter, because you're going to realize it's a futile endeavor. You can't change what other people think unless you really good and get in their heads. Only God can do that stuff, man. And so that's the ultimate goal, is to submit everything to the Lord.
Yep.
Your desires, your wants, your needs, submit them. And let God control things, man. Because I've been down this road trying to control people, trying to get people to, not trying to control people, trying to get people to see me in a better light, to change their perceptions of me. But people don't want to change, or people that have no self-awareness will never change.
Yeah. Were you trying to change people's perspective of you
in a positive light?
In a positive light, but what was the actual goal? Was it to make people see you differently, or was it for you to be a better person?
Yes and yes.
Yeah, same.
I wanted to be a better person.
I would focus on just being the better person.
But I did. Yeah, that
Yeah.
didn't work.
I know that's the right thing to do, but that which I don't want to do, that I do. I want to be
Yeah.
liked. It's like the little,
Yeah.
you like me. And that I think part of this process is dying to that. Still, there's a sense of like, we want to be liked. I think there's nothing wrong with that as long as that's not the focus. Like,
Yes.
and the reason I put that there, and I know we're past time, so I'll make this quick, is because speaking for myself, I went to a place where I'm just like, I don't need anybody. And it's
Mm,
just kind of a cold.
it
Um,
is.
I don't want to be liked at all. And then anybody who would give, and I think it was my mother who said, like, give, but graciously receive. And I think she said it very well. Graciously
Mhm.
receive. So when someone compliments you, accept it, right? But don't
Yes.
identify with it. And
Mm,
that's I think the thing to grow into, because then it's like, look how good I am. Yes, and all these good
yes.
things I do. But at the same time, don't beat yourself up. Give
Yes.
grace where,
I think we've hit on our topic for the next time we do this.
What, self-loathing?
No, I want yeah. No, I want to get it deeper into what Michael was just talking about, the helping people and accepting grace, the difference between the pride of celebrity versus the humility of giving of
Yes.
oneself.
Yes.
So, it's a big conversation. So we might have to dedicate the entire hour and a half to that. But since we are over the hour and a half, I'm going to let you guys tell everybody where they can find you, and then I'll wrap things up here. Go ahead, Michael.
So yeah, I'm on Life Talks. I wanted to drop a Gandhi quote here. So
Go for it.
I was spending 5 minutes trying to find it earlier. It's a little bit of a mouthful. It's hard to find, but it was what I wanted to zoom in on. It's hard. There's 4 comments in there. I hit the max on there. But
That's
speaking
a
on
lot.
nonviolence, yeah, just if anybody's interested, they can check it out. But you can
Dude.
find me. Yeah. I thought it was very well said, and it's something we could, chew on it.
We'll
But
read it out.
all right.
All right. So it's nonviolence is not a cover for cowardice, but it is a supreme virtue of the brave. Exercise of nonviolence requires far greater bravery than that of swordsmanship. Cowardice
Yes.
is wholly inconsistent with nonviolence. True. Translation from swordsmanship to nonviolence is possible, and at times even an easy stage. Nonviolence, therefore, presupposes ability to strike. It is a conscious, deliberate restraint put upon one's destiny or desire for vengeance. But vengeance is any day superior to passive, effeminate, and helpless submission. Forgiveness is higher still. Vengeance too is weakness. The desire for vengeance comes out of fear of harm, imaginary or real. A dog barks and bites when he fears. A man who fears no one on earth would consider it too troublesome, even to summon up anger against one who is vainly trying to injure him. The sun does not wreak vengeance upon little children who throw dust at him. They only harm themselves in the act. It's true. It's good.
Michael Bachioni, Life Talks. So that's where I'm at.
Where you'll find many long quotes like that. No.
Yeah. No, for sure. Trying to simplify it at the
You'll
complexity.
get deep in the weeds with Michael as he finds more and more paradoxes to peel apart and find the paradoxes within the paradox and the paradox within the paradox within the paradox.
Until
That's
I find
the
the
best way to
simple,
do things, man.
until you find the
Yep.
simple truth that just kind of
Ask
Yes.
questions. Keep asking questions. Pick it apart. Think about it. Make it make sense to you. And even then, take it to somebody else and say, "What do you guys think of this?"
correct.
Yep. Very much
There's
so. Which is
been
what we do every Saturday.
there's been so many times that I've done that and then still found myself wrong. God, dang it, man. Really? But yeah,
It's
that's the
fun.
best part, man, is be able to talk about this stuff. You can find me at JS Webster Author blogspot.com, and you can also find me JS Webster Author on X, Twitter. That's where you can find me.
Twix.
Twix. Yes, that's what I like to call it. Twix.
Yeah. Our favorite joke from the old IAK days, calling it Twix. But I am Daniel P. Riley, Whimsyland Literary Coaching and Services. I am a converted Catholic and always questioning everything right down to its smallest nuance.
Good.
You can find me on X at Mr. DP Riley and here on the Whimsyland channel. And that is it, because I don't have time for any more social media than that. We will try and hopefully consistently succeed to have these Coffee and Christ conversations every 2 weeks going forward. So next Sunday, enjoy your time with Christ alone. And the following Sunday, come hang out with us again. Have
Please.
a great day, folks.
Take care, guys.